Now for the Romans, who learnt a lot of what they knew about medicine from the Greeks, but took it further. The great period of Roman history lasted from about 270 BC to 476 AD. The Romans built up a huge empire, stretching from northern England to the Middle East, including the Greek world. They founded towns and cities all over their empire. Rome was the largest city in the world. They believed in many gods, but the empire eventually became Christian. The Romans were practical, and their approach to medicine was based on observation and common sense. They were city dwellers and understood the importance of public health to city life. For example, they knew that a clean water supply was necessary for a healthy town life. They were great engineers and built aqueducts, pipes and fountains to lead water from the mountain springs into the cities. Public baths were used for social relaxation as well as to keep clean. They even built public toilets flushed by running water. The Romans didn't know about germs, but they could see that people living near stagnant water or in unhygienic conditions were unhealthy, so they avoided them. They thought disease was transmitted by bad air. This is in fact incorrect, but it was a theory which lasted until well into the 19th century and led to sensible practical solutions. The Romans built hospitals and kept patients in separate wards to prevent cross-infection. The most influential Roman doctor was Galen, born in 129 AD. As you watch the clip, make notes about what might have made him so important.
Galen was born 500 years after the Hippocratic doctors in what's now Turkey. He spoke Greek, but for 40 years he practiced in Rome, in Italy, where Greek doctors were considered to be the best. He treated the emperor successfully and became Rome's leading doctor. We still have his autobiography, which he wrote because, he said, so many inferior doctors were passing off his work as their own. Galen was a show-off, but he was also a brilliant doctor. This 16th century illustration shows him soon after his arrival in Rome, performing a public dissection on a live pig. His aim was to show the doctors of Rome how far his studies had advanced.
Do you know they still believe the heart controls what we do? It's the brain controls what we do, but only if you make the cut. Can you prove it? So, I had this pig strapped to the table. I sliced into its neck and found its nerves. It was squealing the whole time. I said, watch. When I cut this nerve, it'll squeal. I make the cut. Again, when I cut this nerve, again, it'll squeal. But when I cut this nerve, the pig will no longer be able to squeal. And I cut, and the pig's completely silent, proving the brain, not the heart, controls speech. Everything they believed, in a moment.
Galen's aim was to explain everything about the body, the purpose of each part of the body, what the heart, the brain and the liver do, and how they all work together. He turned medical thinking since Hippocrates into one system, a system which became very powerful and then influenced Western medical thought for the next 1400 years. But Galen had a problem that hindered his development as a doctor. He needed to study the body inside as well as out. In ancient Rome, cutting up dead bodies was simply not done. It wasn't forbidden, but few Greeks or Romans would have dreamed of interfering with a corpse. It was an example of religious beliefs holding back medical progress.
You have to study human bones. I don't mean study in books, even my books, which granted are by far the best. No, I'm talking about real bones, skeletons, seeing them with your own eyes, touching them, understanding how they move, how they fit together. It's difficult, but it's not impossible. I was doctor to the gladiator school for a while. That was good. All those fit and well-muscled men slicing into each other. I got to see inside some very interesting wounds.
Galen also used to search for big family tombs with the marble doors broken so that he could get inside.
I'd spent hours lost in excitement. fixing myself on what I was seeing, determined to remember every bone, every joint. How I'd have wished to take one of those skeletons to have with me when I wrote, to make sure my account was perfect and free from mistakes.
Though Galen claimed to have seen human corpses, the evidence suggests he never did an actual full dissection on a human being. Instead, he had to rely heavily on dissections of apes and other animals. And it meant, despite his brilliance, he did make mistakes. He wrote that the left kidney is lower than the right, correct for an ape, but not for a human. He described the womb, but in fact he was describing the womb of a dog. And because religious beliefs made dissections difficult, it was hard for anyone to challenge his work, or to prove he was wrong. In his lifetime, Galen wrote over 250 books, and because he was writing at the centre of the powerful Roman Empire, his ideas spread. But today, only about half the writings have survived, and they are copies of copies of copies. Galen wrote Greek, but some of his books survive today only in translations, in Arabic, Hebrew or Latin.
Here are some of the main points you should have noted down. Galen rejected superstition in favour of clinical observation and dissection. He brought together the medical tradition of the Greeks and the practical approach of the Romans. Galen's work was the basis of medical knowledge in Europe for the next 1400 years. You may well be asked to write about Galen in the exam. Here's an example of the kind of question you could be asked. Many of Galen's ideas were wrong. Does this mean that he is not important in the history of medicine? This question would probably carry 8 marks. This style of question is like a coconut shy, inviting you to knock it down. It gives some information by saying that Galen made mistakes. It tells you what to write about, that is, how important Galen was. And finally, it asks you to comment on it. This kind of question is often used in an exam. Here's a tip. Never agree with the coconut shy statement. Don't be misled by the examiner. Is it true he made mistakes? Above all, why was he important? With 8 marks at stake, you should probably write about 3 paragraphs. Here's another tip. Always make a plan for longer answers. Examiners want an organised answer, not just a jumble of points. Now it's over to you. Stop the tape now and make a plan for 3 paragraphs on the importance of Galen. Here are the main points you ought to make and a suggestion for a plan. The first paragraph should deal with who Galen was and what he did. He was a Greek doctor of the 2nd century AD who worked in Rome, and he was very popular in his day. He knew the importance of understanding the skeleton and the functions of parts of the body. The second paragraph should look at Galen's limitations. He had problems dissecting humans, so he used animals such as pigs and dogs. This led to some mistakes in his descriptions. Your third paragraph should deal with Galen's importance. Galen's writings were important for 1400 years. His books pulled together everything known from the Greek and Roman world. When Rome fell, some of Galen's books survived, so forming the basis of the education of doctors in the Middle Ages. He was the great authority, unquestioned, mistakes and all, until the 16th century.
In my history mark, I got a D. I was really gutted. So, I decided to try and change that. I went to loads of revision classes and learnt to refer to the question. And in the end, I got an A. So rather than writing everything you know about the topic, answer the question.
That's the end of the section on Greek and Roman medicine.